Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Fun with Maps. I'm your host Dan Hanson. Like my hat? Let's start this episode off with a riddle. And I'm sure you've heard this riddle before, but it fits in with the map. So, a hunter leaves his base camp, right, in the morning, and he travels a mile due south, okay? He gets there, he then turns and travels a mile due east, okay? He spots a bear, shoots the bear, okay? Taking a direct route, he travels a mile due north and is back at the base camp. And the riddle is, what color is the bear? And obviously we all know that the bear is white because it's a polar bear, and that the hunter is at the North Pole. Okay, that's the only place on Earth in which you can go south, east, and then north and return to your starting position, because that's where all the longitudes meet. So this episode of Fun with Maps is on the North Pole, and it's just in time. That's why I'm wearing this hat. It's just in time to answer any of your kids' questions that they may have about where Santa Claus lives here on the North Pole. You know, Santa Claus is home to Westerners traditionally at the North Pole. He's got a house there. He's got a workshop where the elves all make the gifts that they deliver to kids. But every Nordic country, you know, this is in the West, the U.S. and Canada, we think of the North Pole. But every Nordic country claims Santa's residence to be within their territory. So let's take a look. So as a Fun with Maps viewer, you know about the Nordic countries. They're this region it's a geographic and cultural region in Northern Europe and the Northern Atlantic. So it'll include Finland, okay, Sweden, Norway, the Faroe Islands over here under Danish control, Greenland up here, again, part of Denmark, Iceland, and let's see, the Åland Islands over here, which are just off of Finland. Okay, so these are the Nordic countries, and they all say, hey, Santa lives in our region. So for example, in Norway, the Norwegians say that Santa lives in a city called Drobak. The Danes in Denmark doesn't say Santa lives down here in Denmark, but remember, Greenland is part of Denmark, and they say that Santa lives up here in Greenland. Okay, in Sweden, there's actually a town of Mora. It's got a theme park named Tomteland, and the National Postal Terminal there in Stockholm. When someone sends a letter to Santa, it goes there to Tomteboda. Okay, so that's Sweden. And then in Finland, Korvantunturi has long been claimed as Santa's home. There's a couple of theme parks there. Santa Claus Village and Santa Park are located there. And even in Belarus, which we can't see, it's down here, I don't know if you can see it, there's a home for Santa claimed in the national park there. So, of course, in the U.S., Santa Claus lives in the North Pole. According to the Canadian Post Office, the North Pole lies within a Canadian jurisdiction, and the postal code, like we have zip codes here in the U.S., their postal codes, and it's H0H0H0. So if you write it out, you'll see that's a reference to ho ho ho, which is what, of course, Santa says, his notable saying. So in 2008, Canada actually granted citizenship status to Santa Claus, and the government said, let me quote this: "The government of Canada wishes Santa the very best in his Christmas Eve duties and wants to let him know that as a Canadian citizen, he has the automatic right to re-enter Canada once his trip around the world is complete." Okay, in the U.S., there's also a city in Alaska called North Pole, which obviously isn't the North Pole we're talking about today. There's a tourist attraction there called the Santa Claus House. If you use the zip code 99705 in the United States, those letters will end up, that's the postal code for Santa Claus. So it's not as cool as ho 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 with the Canadians, but if you send it to zip code 99705, you're gonna get it's going to go to Santa Claus in the United States. But this episode of Fun with Maps isn't about Santa. It's about the North Pole, also known as the geographic North Pole or terrestrial North Pole, okay? It's a point in the northern hemisphere where the Earth's axis of rotation meets the surface. We call it the true North Pole to distinguish it from the magnetic North Pole. That's a whole nother smoke. So the North Pole is the northernmost part of the Earth, and it's diametrically opposite to the South Pole, which is the southernmost part. But as you'll see, we can't even lock down a precise location of the North Pole because, believe it or not, it wobbles. Okay, and I'm not talking about the song Wobble by rapper VIC. It's a good song, but that's not what we're talking about. So let's take a closer look at the real North Pole. Okay, here's a map, an azimuthal projection showing the Arctic Ocean. Okay, and right here at the center is the North Pole. You can also see the 75th and the 60th parallel north. So, as I said, the North Pole is by definition the northernmost point on Earth. Here we go, right? It's diametrically opposed to the South Pole. It defines the geodetic latitude 90 degrees north as well as the direction of true north. Now, geodetic comes from geodesy. That's just the branch of mathematics dealing with the shape and area of the Earth or large portions of it. So, at the North Pole, all directions point south, right? You can see that. All lines of longitude converge there. All these lines of longitude converge here at the North Pole. So you can define its longitude as any value, really, any degree. That's why the polar bear riddle works, because if you're going this way in longitude and all, it's the North Pole. All directions point south. Okay, so this is a good map from the CIA, and you can see, okay, the North Pole right here is at the center of the northern hemisphere. The nearest land is usually said to be Kaffekluben Island off the north coast of Greenland. It's about 430 miles away. So we're in here. So here's North Pole, here's the island. Okay. Here's a Fun with Maps fact. Kaffekluben is a Danish word meaning coffee club. So you could call it Coffee Club Island. But it's uninhabited, but it contains the northernmost undisputed point of land on Earth. Because, again, North Pole is not really land. The nearest permanently inhabited place is Alert in a region of Nunavut, Canada, which is about 508 miles from the pole. So here's Alert. You can see it here. And that's inhabited, and there's the pole. And that's about 508 miles. Okay? And that's, you know, that is inhabited. Instead of Alert, you may know it as Baffin Island. You know, here's the Baffin Bay. But in the native language, it's Kwiktaluk region, Nunavut, Canada. Okay? So that's right there. This is a great map. Here you see North Pole right there with all the lines of longitude coming out of it. It's right at the top. The Arctic Ocean here. And then you have these countries. Here's Russia. Here's Europe. Finland and Sweden and Norway and all the Nordic countries. Here's Greenland, which is part of Denmark, of course. And here's Canada. And then you have Alaska up here, which is, of course, the United States. So this is a really good map showing the North Pole here at the center of everything. This is another really good CIA map, and you can see, you know, the South Pole lies on a continental landmass, but the North Pole here, it just lies in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, mid waters that are, you know, almost permanently covered with sea ice that is constantly shifting. So there's the pole, and again you can see Russia, and here's Europe and Greenland, Canada, US, all that. The sea depth at the North Pole has been measured at about 14,000 feet by the Russian Mir submersible in 2007, and about the same by the USS Nautilus in 1958. So it's about 13,980 feet or so there, the sea depth here in this Arctic Ocean. This is a picture of the MIR submersible. It's one of the 2 vehicles that were used in the first ever manned descent to the seabed under the North Pole. And the MER submersible is hoisted into water via cable connected to the ship's winch system, and you can see the manipulated arms and the big window, viewing window. So here's the MER submersible. So with it being in the water and shifting ice and all, it's impractical to construct a permanent station at the North Pole, unlike the South Pole, which again is on the land. However, the Soviet Union and later Russia have constructed a number of manned drifting stations basically every year since 1937, and some have been very close to the pole or passed over to coal. Since 2002, the Russians have also annually established a base which is called Barneo close to the pole. This operates for a few weeks during the early spring. This is all fluid. You know, studies have shown in the 2000s, they said the North Pole may become seasonally ice-free because of Arctic ice shrinkage by the late 21st century. So this is a NASA image showing the Arctic ice shrinkages of 2007 compared to 2005, and also to the 1979 to 2000 average. So this was a record sea ice minimum in the Arctic. So here we got this line here, that's a 2007 minimum ice, and then over here is 2005, so we lost all of this stuff in there. And then the median minimums from 79 to 2000 are way up here. So say year 2000 where median's up here, lost all this to 2005, lost all this to 2007. So it's something to the sea ice concentration minimums are something to be concerned about. Okay, so remember in grade school when the teacher would walk up to the board and pull down a big map, or when you looked at a map in an atlas as opposed to a globe? Those are Mercator projections. Here's a fun with map fact about that. Gerardus Mercator was born in Flanders, which is modern day Belgium, and in 1569 he published his epic world map. It was designed to help sailors navigate around the globe. They could use latitude and longitude lines to plot a straight route. So Mercator's projection laid out the globe as a flattened version of a cylinder, and you can see that here. So here we have the North Pole, here's Asia, Europe, Greenland, Canada, all that. But it's flat. As we see on the globe, you know, that's how it really is, the sphere of the earth. But for maps and for sailors and all, we needed this flat stuff, and that was Mercator. All the latitude and longitude lines intersect at 90-degree angles. Okay? Because the projection was intended to be a reference for navigation and not land geography, the land masses in the map are not necessarily proportional to their actual size. You know, at higher latitudes, land masses appear larger than their actual size. So, you know, Russia isn't that big right here. Greenland's looking pretty huge. All that. And that's just part of the distortion of this kind of map. But despite that, we still use Mercator's projections a lot today. It's really, he was brilliant. Here's another fun with maps fact. In addition to publishing his famous projection, his maps like this, Mercator was the pioneer of another geographical tool we use to this day. He was the one who coined the term atlas to describe a collection of maps, and he named it after the Greek mythological figure who held the world on his shoulders. So Mercator continued his cartography work for the rest of his life, and he kept publishing parts of his atlas until he died in 1594. So attempts to reach the North Pole began in the late 19th century, with the record for farthest north being surpassed on numerous occasions. They kept one-upping each other. The first undisputed expedition to reach the North Pole was that of the airship Norge, which overflew the area in 1926 with 16 men on board, including their expedition leader Ronald Amundsen. 3 prior expeditions, led by Frederick Cook in 1908 by land, Robert Peary 1909 by land, and Richard Byrd 1926 aerial, were once also accepted as having reached the pole. However, in each case, later analysis of expedition data has cast some doubt about the accuracy of their claims. So here's this picture. This is the Perry Sledge Party, and they're holding flags at what they say is the North Pole. So they've got a native Inuit Uta or Ukwa, that's a Navy League flag, and then Uta holding the DKE fraternity flag. Then you got Matthew Hanson with the polar flag. Then you got Egingwa holding the DAR peace flag, and Siglo holding the Red Cross flag. This was them in 1909, Perry Sledge Party. So remember I mentioned the wobble, okay? And here, let's look at this map again. The Earth's axis of rotation, and hence the position of the North Pole, is commonly believed to be fixed relative to the surface of the Earth, until in the 18th century a mathematician named Leonard Euler predicted that the axis might wobble slightly, okay? Without getting too complicated with the math or anything, astronomers around the beginning of the 20th century noticed a small apparent variation of latitude as determined for a fixed point on Earth from the observation of stars. So part of this variation could be attributed to a wandering of the pole across the Earth's surface by a range of a few meters. The wandering has several periodic components and an irregular component. So the exact point of intersection of the Earth's axis and the Earth's surface at any given moment is called the instantaneous pole. But because of the wobble, this cannot be used as a definition of a precise fixed North Pole or South Pole for that matter. Of course, we'd like to tie the system of Earth coordinates with latitude, longitude, elevations, and all that to fixed landforms. However, with plate tectonics, isostasy, there's no system in which all the geographic features are fixed. So we have this wobble here. We can get pretty close. It's within a few meters, which is really good, but it's not as precise as some would like. So this is a great map. As early as the 16th century, many prominent people correctly believed the North Pole was in a sea. Okay, in the 19th century, they called that the open polar sea. So here's the North Pole, all those lines of longitude. Here's the open polar sea, which we call the Arctic. It was hoped that passages could be found through ice flows at favorable times of the year. So there was all these expeditions going out to find that way, generally with whaling ships, and because they were already used to the cold in the northern latitudes. So one of the earliest expeditions to set out with the explicit intention of reaching the North Pole was that of British naval officer William Edward Parry, P-A-R-R-Y, who in 1827 reached latitude 82 degrees 45 minutes north. There's there's a lot of expeditions that went there and tried different ways of getting there. Many ended in tragedy and loss of life. But it's one of those things where the humans, just keep trying to, the pioneers would go and try to find the North Pole and be there. In April of 1895, the Norwegian explorers Nansen and Johansen struck out for the pole on skis after leaving their icebound ship Fram. Here's the Fram. It's a picture, the Fram stuck in the Arctic ice here. So they took off on skis and they reached latitude of 86.14 north before they abandoned the attempt and turned southwards, eventually reaching Franz Josef Land. And then in 1897, a Swedish engineer and two companions tried to reach the North Pole in a hydrogen balloon, but came down just 190 miles north of the northeasternmost part of the archipelago there. They trekked on, but died there 3 months after their crash. Some of the claims of reaching the North Pole, including by U.S. explorer Frederick Cook with two Inuit men in 1908, and U.S. Navy engineer Robert Peary, this is Peary, P-E-A-R-Y, in 1909, have led to questions after much scrutiny. But as time goes on, there's been support for Peary. In 2005, a British explorer, Tom Avery, and four companions recreated the outward portion of Peary's journey. They had replica wooden sleds, they had Canadian Eskimo dogs teams, and they reached the North Pole in 36 days, 22 hours, about 5 hours faster than Peary. And Avery wrote, The admiration and respect which I hold for Robert Peary, Matthew Hanson, and the 4 Inuit men who ventured north in 1909 has grown enormously since we set out from Cape Columbia. Having now seen for myself how we traveled across the pack ice, I am more convinced than ever that Peary did indeed discover the North Pole. So even though there were some people questioning it, as late as 2005, it was recreated, their journey, and it looked like it was possible to do. And so this group here, Peary and his group, maybe they were the first to discover the North Pole. Okay. The first claimed flight over the pole was made in 1926 by a U.S. naval officer, Richard Byrd, and pilot Floyd Bennett in a Fokker tri-motor aircraft. And then the first consistent, verified, and scientifically convincing attainment of the North Pole was in 1926 by a Norwegian explorer named Amundsen and his U.S. sponsor Lincoln Ellsworth from the airship Norge. The United States Navy submarine USS Nautilus crossed the North Pole on August 3, 1958. And on March 17, 1959, USS Skate surfaced at the pole, breaking through the ice above it, becoming the first naval vessel to do so. So here's a picture, a Navy picture of the USS Skate at a drift station, at Drift Station Alpha, here in the Arctic in 1958. So you can read, there's all kinds of attempts, and they're fascinating, about all the attempts to reach the pole in various ways, such as Will Steger and his teammates in 1968. They were the first to reach the pole by dog sled and without resupply. And in 1987, Shinji Kazama of Japan became the first person to reach the North Pole on a motorcycle. So if you like that kind of stuff, you can read all about it. There's all kinds of great stories like that. Here's a real cool Fun with Maps fact. So in 1985, Sir Edmund Hillary, he's the first man to stand on the summit of Mount Everest, okay? And Neil Armstrong, the first man to stand on the moon, they landed at the North Pole in a small twin-engine ski plane. So you got Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, and Sir Edmund Hillary, first man on the top of Mount Everest. And Hillary thus became the first man to stand at both poles and on the summit of Everest. So that was really something. So in 2005, the U.S. Navy submarine USS Charlotte surfaced through 61 inches of ice at the North Pole and spent 18 hours there. The Los Angeles class attack submarine Charlotte broke through those 61 inches during a transit exploration. The wind chill factor reached a low of minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but the crew members ventured out in the ice for it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and they got some ice liberty. So here's a picture of the USS Charlotte poking through that ice, 61 inches, it's over 5 feet of ice. Okay, here's a Fun with Maps fact. The North and South Poles experience the slowest rate of sunrise and sunset on the Earth. And that makes sense. The sun at the North Pole is continuously above the horizon during the summer, continuously below the horizon during the winter. So sunrises, the one sunrise of the year is just before the March equinox, around March 20th. Then the sun takes about 3 months to reach its highest point, near 23 degrees elevation at the summer solstice, around June 21st. And then it starts to sink, and it reaches sunset for the year just after the September equinox, around September 23rd. So when the sun is visible in the polar sky, it appears to move in a horizontal circle above the horizon. And this, they're poles, so a similar sequence is observed at the South Pole, but there's a 6-month time difference, obviously. The North Pole is substantially warmer than the South Pole because it lies at sea level in the middle of an ocean. Here's the North Pole, here's the ocean. It's sea level, it's in the middle. That ocean, even though it's frigid, acts as a reservoir of heat. Now the South Pole, it's at an altitude and it's on a continental landmass, okay? So winter temperatures at the northernmost weather station in Greenland, in here, that can range about minus 58 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Averages around minus 24 degrees Fahrenheit. And the North Pole is, more northern than that, so it's a little colder than that. But that's a general range. Here's a fun with maps fact. Despite the riddle we told at the beginning, polar bears are believed to rarely travel beyond about 82 degrees north, owing to the scarcity of food, though they have found tracks in the vicinity of the North Pole, and a 2006 expedition reported sighting a polar bear just a mile from the North Pole. So they've also seen ringed seals there and Arctic foxes, within 40 miles away or so. Finally, back to Santa Claus, and this is a picture of Thomas Nast. It's the most famous drawing, Merry Old Santa Claus. It was in 1881 edition of Harper's Weekly, and this is what we've come to have him look like. Santa Claus, also known as Father Christmas, Saint Nick, Saint Nicholas, Kris Kringle, Santa. He's that legendary character, Eastern Christian culture. He brings gifts on Christmas Eve, toys and candy to the well-behaved children, the nice ones, and either coal or nothing to the naughty children. He keeps that naughty and nice list. He accomplishes this with the aid of Christmas elves who make the toys in his workshop at the North Pole, and then the flying reindeer pull his sleigh through the air. So this modern character of Santa, which we still have today, he's based on traditions surrounding the historical Saint Nicholas, the English figure of Father Christmas, and the Dutch figure of Sinterklaas. Okay, so it's a combination of some of those. His home in the North Pole reflects the exotic, almost mystic nature of this secluded area. And it's exotic and mystic not just for Westerners. Because it's so remote, the North Pole is sometimes identified with a mysterious mountain of ancient Iranian tradition called Mount Qaf, Q-A-F, which translates to the farthest point of the earth. And the North Pole plays a key part in the cultural worldview of Sufism and Iranian mysticism. Mandiant people, the Mandians are a Gnostic set of Iraq and southwestern Iran, and in Mandiant cosmology, the North Pole and Polaris, the star, are associated with the world of light. So Mandians face north when they're praying, and temples are also oriented toward the north. On the contrary, south is associated with the world of darkness. Currently, under international law, no country owns the North Pole or the region of the Arctic Ocean surrounding it. Okay, there's 5 surrounding Arctic countries. Russia, Canada over here, Norway, Denmark, and the guys of Greenland, the United States, and they're all limited to a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone off their coasts, and the area beyond that is administered by the International Seabed Authority. So, as you might expect, there's been a flurry of expeditions and explorations in recent years led by the Russians. The Russians have been trying for a dominant influence in the Arctic for many years, according to the New York Times. And here's the thing, with the warming Arctic climate and shrinking of the iced area in the summer, that's attracted the attention of many countries, including the U.S. and China, besides Russia, because toward the top of the world there, suddenly you might have some shipping lanes that you could travel through that before were just blocked by ice, and there may be resources there too. So I hope you have a better understanding of Santa Claus's home here in the North Pole. If you like this episode, please click like and consider subscribing. Click on the subscribe button in the lower right of this video, and that way you'll never miss an episode of Fun with Maps. So until next time, I'm your host, Dan Hanson. Keep on having fun with maps, and Merry Christmas.